Hello, ZJ. In this video today, we will talk a little bit about Native American Indian families, and we'll throw in a few other things too. You ready? Okay, let's go. We talked earlier about what tribes are, and tribes, if you remember, are when you have a bunch of families that are related to each other and they make up a clan. And then you've got a bunch of clans that are therefore also related to each other, and they make up a tribe. So to be in a tribe, you have to be sort of related. Now, it can be distantly related. It could be like, sixth cousins. But still, one way or another, you're related. Now, the question is, how is it decided who gets to be a member of that tribe or that clan or even that family? How's that figured out? Well, some tribes determine that based on who your dad was. Okay? However, for every tribe that figured up membership by who your dad was, there were three other tribes that determined membership by who your mom was, not by who your dad was. Okay? So that means 3/4 of tribes in North America went by who the mom was, not by who the dad was, to figure out who's a member of the tribe. Okay, 3/4, like that. That is 3/4. It's when you have four equal parts, and then you've got three out of those four. Like this circle right here. It's kind of like a piece of pie cut into four equal pieces. 3/4 of that circle are green. How many fourths are white? Well, I hope you said 1/4, because that's the right answer. That is what we call, by the way, a fraction. That's when you don't have a whole amount, you have part of an amount. Look at us. We snuck a little math in there. Is that sneaky or what? Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. So, 1/4 of the tribes in North America went by who your dad is, but 3/4 went by who your mom is. That's many more, right? That is 3 times more. Meanwhile, Europeans, and remember, those European colonists started coming across the ocean, and they're going to start meeting these Native American Indians. Most Europeans, a long time ago, they had been tribes, but they weren't really tribes. That's not how they did things anymore, except for the Scottish. However, Europeans did base what country you belong to, what group you belong to, based on who your dad was also. However, they did it a lot differently, even from the Indian tribes that went through who your dad is. So let's take a look at how that worked. Now, before I get started talking about this European family business, there's something that I want you to know, something I want you to be aware of. What I'm going to describe is the tradition, that is, how things always used to be done. And a long time ago, it was the law that you had to do things this way. But in more recent years, it's not like that, and some people don't do it the way that I'm going to describe at all. And it certainly isn't the law anymore that you have to. But most people do it this way who are from European families or of European descent, white people, in other words. Most of them still do it this way just because that's how their family's always done it. But nowadays, some people don't, and that's perfectly fine. Okay? Let's go. All right, now here is a painting of a European family from the time period we're talking about, which is when the colonists were coming over. So that's the 1600s, 1700s, probably the 1600s, judging from the clothes. And we're going to say this family is from England. Okay? So the dad and husband, we're going to say his name is John Green. All right? Well, John Green married a woman, and the woman that he married, her name, we're going to say, was Susan White. Okay, there she is. Now, her name was Susan White, and let's say that her parents, who were married, were these guys, this couple here, George White and his wife Jane White. Now, here's how things worked with Europeans. Men had most of the rights, and women didn't have very many rights. And in fact, women were looked on as if they were property, almost as if they were owned by men. All right. So Susan, her last name is Susan White because her dad's name is White. So when she was born, she automatically had his name, just like his wife automatically had his name. So Jane White would have been born something else. Let's say she had been Jane Black, just to keep the color scheme going, all right? Well, Susan White, once she married John Green, according to the law for English people back then, she had to change her name. So what did her name become? Her name would then become Susan Green. And then they have a bunch of kids, all right? So let's name the kids. Let's name them Zora and Nora and Dora and Bob. Zora, Nora, and Dora. That sounds kind of funny, but actually, my dad had 3 aunts that were the sisters of my grandma Ruthie. And their names were Zora, Nora, and Dora. Well, in this example, we're looking at European families a long time ago. So Susan White had to change her name to Susan Green because essentially she practically belonged to her husband. And then the children belonged to him as well. So all these kids, Zora, Nora, and Dora, and Bob, would all have the last name Green. Bob Green, the little boy there, well, he would be Bob Green for the rest of his life. But Zora, Nora, and Dora, they would only be named Green until they got married, when they would have to take the name of their husbands. And like I said, some people still do it this way, and that's all right. If that's how they want to do it. And then some people don't do it this way. You can pretty well decide nowadays. But the tradition was pretty well that's what you had to do. And the way that started was women and kids too just didn't have many rights at all in the European way of doing things. Well, here is a Native American Indian family. Just so we can, we have a picture of each kind of family here. And we don't know which tribe this is. Just from looking at them, I would guess it's from the Plains. In fact, I'm almost positive it is a Plains tribe. Not sure which tribe it is. But we don't know if they belong to a tribe that goes by your mom or that goes by your dad. But either way, they did things a lot differently than European families did. By the way, that European tradition, that European way of doing things in families where the man owns everything essentially and controls everything, there's a big word for that. It's called patriarchy. I told you it's a big word. Ask your mom about it. Well, to more closely examine how this works, especially how clans fit in, I'm going to focus in on the Cherokee tribe that you've already learned some about from that book that you read, because I know more about them than I do other tribes. So here we have pictures of these symbols that represent the 7 clans in the Cherokee tribe. So there are 7 clans. There's the Bird Clan, the Blue Clan, the Wolf Clan, the Deer Clan, the Paint Clan, the Wild Potato Clan, and the Longhair Clan. Now, many of those 7 are made up of several other smaller sub-clans. Like, for example, the Longhair Clan is made up of the Twisters, the Wind, and the Stranger sub-clans. Speaking of the Longhair Clan, people in the Longhair Clan really did, at least a long time ago, all have long hair. So here's a couple of pictures of Cherokees today that are dressed up to look like Cherokees from a long time ago. And so you see the one guy there with the long hair. The other guy, that's how Cherokee men wore their hair, the guy on the right a long time ago, which is that they shaved their head, except they had one little ponytail coming out the top of their head that they would braid sometimes or decorate with feathers. So that's how most Cherokee men looked, except 1 out of every 7, that's 1/7, had long hair because they were in the Longhair Clan. Now, every Cherokee town had people from all these different clans living in it. Here is a picture of a council house, and that's where everyone would come to, all the grown-ups would come to vote on things. And when we looked at a Cherokee map, a map of a Cherokee town earlier, I pointed one of these out and said we'd talk about it more later. So that's what we're going to do now, where clans are concerned. So inside one of these council houses, there are 7 poles that hold up the roof, and it's divided. It's shaped sort of like there are 7 different corners of the room. So when all the grown-ups would come in there to vote on things or to have religious services or various other things, ceremonies, then there's 7 sets of benches, one along each of the 7 walls, and you would go sit on the benches that were assigned for your clan. And if you look really close there on the pole, you can kind of see the poles on the bottom. Actually been inside the little wooden masks, the council house, showing which clan was supposed to be there. That photo I took from the internet, but I'm going to show you some other pictures that I took and that your Aunt Hannah took because she was with me. It's located in Cherokee, North Carolina, and there's a museum there. That's where the Eastern Band of Cherokees lives still, not in the museum, but in that area. And they have a little town outside the museum called Oconaluftee that is set up just like a Cherokee town would have been 200 years ago. And you can actually go inside the buildings and walk around and stuff like that. It's really cool. If you and your mom come visit sometime when that's open, I think they're open in from May to fall. Someday when we're all able to safely travel again, maybe we could all go there and go to the museum. I bet you would enjoy that. Anyway, let me just share with you a couple of the pictures of that council house. So here's a picture of the nice Cherokee lady who led us on a tour of the village, and there we are walking into the council house. And then here we are on the inside looking up at the rafters, at the ceiling, and at all the poles, and you can see there you can get a much better look at the clan masks on those poles. And here are some of the benches, and there would be 7 sets of those where you would go and sit according to your clan. We also went to this area that's here right in the middle of the village. It's the dance grounds, and the Cherokees who work there showed us some of the dances, and they're dressed up again like Cherokees from a long time ago. And this one couple on the right, they're not Cherokees. They're a white couple that are dressed up like Europeans from a long time ago that they're pretending lived in the town with the Cherokees, which, happened fairly often. So they showed us lots of different dances, and all around this area, what the area they're dancing on is sand. There's a bunch of sand laid out there. And there are little pavilions that's just like a roof without any walls. There are 7 pavilions circling around the dance area, the dance ground, and each one has a clan mask on it. You can see this one right here. That's the Paint Clan. So, in the old times, if you were Cherokee, you would go to one of these dances, and you would sit in the pavilion set aside for your clan. Now here, they're conducting people on tours, people who are not Cherokee, and showing them around. So there's a lot of people standing around who are not Cherokee. But there are also several Cherokees that are not just doing the dance, but doing the music and singing. And it would be considered very, very, very rude to just go out there and join in with them to start dancing, unless you were invited. Now, if you're invited, that's different. Then it's okay. So here are just several pictures that I'm going to show that Hannah took of people dancing. And yes, that was me joining in the friendship dance. But let's get back to the topic at hand. Clans and tribes and so forth. Now, the Cherokees, like most tribes in the southeast, not all of them, but most of them, trace your clan membership and your tribe membership through the mother. Okay? By the way, you would not be allowed to marry anybody from your mother's clan or from your father's clan because they would be too closely related to you. It would be like marrying your brother or your sister or your first cousin or something like that. When people do that, it can cause all kinds of physical problems. So you were not allowed to marry anybody from those 2 clans. You could pick anybody from any of the other 5 clans. Okay? So let's think about this for a second. If you're Cherokee, you trace everything through your mother. So let's imagine, what if a Cherokee man from the Blue Clan married a woman from the Wolf Clan? Well, what clan would their children be? Their children would be, what do you think? Well, if you said Wolf Clan, because that's what their mother's clan is, you would be correct, because you're the same clan always as your mother. Now, unless you were adopted. And remember when I said everything in a tribe is about being related one way or another? Well, sometimes they would adopt people. Maybe it was people that just kind of were friendly and that they really, really liked a lot and that they traded with or something. And they might adopt them and make them Cherokee. Or, and this happened a lot, if somebody, if they met somebody, especially if they were a kid, and they were an orphan, that is, both their mother and father were dead, and they had no family, then a lot of times they would adopt them. And when that happened, you would go into the long hair clan. So that would then be your clan affiliation. And you would be considered Cherokee just the same as if you had been born that way. All right, well, let's take a look at another example. What if, now in the other example, it was a man from the Blue clan married a woman from the Wolf clan. But let's just say that a man from the Wolf clan, I almost confused myself there. Let's say a man from the Wolf clan married a woman from the Blue clan, and they had children. What clan would their children be? What do you think? Well, if you said the Blue clan, because that's what their mother is, then you were paying attention, and you are right. Now, what if we're talking about not different clans, but different tribes? And this happened sometimes too. What if a Cherokee man married a Choctaw woman? And by the way, both Cherokees and Choctaws trace everything through the mother. So a Cherokee man married a Choctaw woman. What tribe would their children belong to? What do you think? Choctaw, because that's what their mother is. Now, there was a tribe in the South, the Shawnee, who traced things through their father. There were some tribes like that. There were a few in the Southeast. So Shawnees trace everything through the father. So what if a Shawnee man married a Cherokee woman? What tribe would their children be? Because Shawnee men trace it through their father, and Cherokees trace through the mother. So a Shawnee man and a Cherokee woman, their children would be, what do you think? Well, this is kind of a tricky one. Their children would be both. They would be considered Shawnee by the Shawnees, and they would be considered Cherokee by the Cherokees. Now remember, under that European system, where things are traced through the father, that you'll recall that that includes last names, right? So that family that we kind of invented, the Green family, the little boy, Bob, would be Bob Green for the rest of his life. But the way they used to do it, and the way they made everybody do it back then, was that a little girl would change her name someday if they got married. Okay, well, that's not how the Cherokee system worked. In the Cherokee system, the clan you were born into is the clan you would be in for the rest of your life. So let's say that you're a member of the Wolf clan, and your mom is in the Wolf clan. That's why you are. So when you grow up, and you're not a little kid anymore, you're a grown-up, and there are council meetings, you would go into the council house, and you would sit over with your mom. But your dad wouldn't sit with you. He would be sitting over in one of the other sections, the section for his clan. And that's where this gets very interesting, and it's very different from what Europeans were used to. It's different from even the way we think about families today. Technically, your clan is your family. So technically, if you were a Cherokee back then, your dad wasn't actually related to you. He wasn't a member of your clan. Now, with Cherokees, the families lived together. The moms and dads and the kids lived together. The dad would go out hunting and fishing, and the mom would do the farm work, and they would all cooperate like that. But because he wasn't a member of your clan, now if you identified as a little girl, then your mom would teach you all the things you needed to know. But if you were, or if you identified as a little boy, it would not be your dad teaching you those things. It would be a male relative in your clan, and your dad is not in your clan. Now, again, this is if you identify as a boy. So, what that usually would mean is that the person, if you were a boy, that taught you all the things that you needed to know and that disciplined you when you were bad and all that stuff, would be actually your mom's oldest brother. And if your mom didn't have any brothers, then it would be your mom's dad, your grandpa, who would be the one that would tell you all those stories and teach you all those things. Which makes me stop and think, if families were like that, today, that would actually have been, for me, that would have been my uncle, Hars, my mom's brother. And there's a picture of us, and then here's actually a picture of us with your mom when they were like 14 or 15 years old. And now that I think about it, my Uncle Hars actually did teach me a lot of the stuff that I know, and especially told me all the stories, all the family stories, and really taught me about how to tell stories. So that's kind of interesting. So that's what it would have been like in Cherokee society. Now, even in tribes that traced things through your father, not your mother, which is the same way that the Europeans did it, even in those tribes, women tended to have more rights than European women did. But for those tribes that traced your descent through your mother, women tended to have an elevated position, a lot of rights and respect and responsibility. And here's a painting that I think the title of this painting is "She Spoke for Her Clan," and these are several great Cherokee woman leaders and what clan or sub-clan that they belonged to. Among the Cherokees, and this was true in the other tribes in the southeast and the northeast, and probably all over the country, tribes that trace things through the mom. Women had a voice on the council. Women participated in leadership. Sometimes women were the main leader or chief, and they had positions of great respect. And I want to close out this section with just telling you a little bit about two famous Cherokee women who were leaders from different time periods. Here on the left is a Cherokee woman whose name was Nanyehi, which means one that goes about. Later on, she married a European man, an English guy, whose name was, his last name was Ward, and so she became named Ward, and he called her Nancy because that was an English name and it sounded kind of similar to her actual Cherokee name. So she is known as Nancy Ward and also as Nanyehi. She was born in 1738 and lived until 1822, which is a very long time. She lived a long life. She had the title of Beloved Woman, which was an actual job description for the Cherokees. So on the Cherokee Council, the Council of Chiefs, there was a part of the council that was held by women, the Council of Women. But there was also a woman who was like the top woman in the town, or in some cases the top woman in the whole tribe. And Nancy Ward was that. just to tell you a little bit about how she wound up getting that position. When she was young, she was a very young woman. She was in her late teens. I don't know, like 18, 19, and she was married. People married young back then, and she was married to a young warrior whose name was Kingfisher. And the Cherokees had a war against the Muskogee Creek Indians, and they fought each other, and they had a big battle. And in the battle, Kingfisher was firing his gun. He was standing beside a fallen log, and his wife Nanyehi was kneeling down behind the log and loading his guns for him, but he got shot and killed in the battle. And a lot of other Cherokees fell, and the Cherokee warriors were getting very discouraged, and they were about to give up and run away because it looked like they were losing. But when Nanyehi's husband fell, she got really angry, and she took his gun. She picked up his gun, and she ran charging at the enemy, at the Muskogee Creek warriors, just ran straight at them, yelling and screaming and then threatening them. And it was so brave that the Creek warriors were kind of surprised. They're like, "Hey, wait, what's going on here?" And seeing her being so brave made all the other Cherokees, all the Cherokee warriors, feel braver too. And so they said, if she's going to run out there and do that, we can't just let her get hurt. We have to go do it too. And so they all got up and ran behind her, and it turned the tide of the battle, and the Cherokees won the battle. And that was just the first of many things that she did that she would become famous for. This other woman is named Wilma Mankiller, which that's a fairly common Cherokee name, Mankiller. And she was elected chief of the entire Cherokee Nation in the 1980s. She was born in 1945. She passed away about 10 years ago. She wasn't really, really old. She was middle-aged. She had a disease, and she died from it. But she was the first woman to be the principal chief of the entire Cherokee Nation. And when I was in college, about 20 years ago, when your mom was about your age or a little bit older, at Tennessee Tech, that's where I went to college, Wilma Mankiller came there and spoke. So she was actually alive at the same time that your mom and I have been alive. Well, the final picture that I want to show you is this tombstone that was put up not too long ago, just a few years ago, for Nancy Ward here in Tennessee. And your Grandma Robin and I, last year on spring break, we took several days and we drove all around Cherokee country in the southeast here in Tennessee and North Carolina and Georgia, and we went to the museums and we went to all the important places, and then we went also to visit Nancy Ward's grave. And she has a very nice tombstone. It has the names of a couple of her relatives also, her son named Five Killer, and her brother Longfellow. And it is a really nice, pretty place. It's very, very quiet, and it's right next to this great big tree, which I don't have a picture of the tree, but there were all of these ribbons of different colors tied to it, and that's from Cherokee visitors who had come to this grave, and those things are called prayer ties. So when they'd say a prayer for her, they would tie a ribbon on this tree. So those are just two examples. There have been a lot of very, very powerful and strong and wise and brave, not only Cherokee women, but women leaders among many tribes. And still today, it's often the women who are right out in the forefront, especially when they're trying to protect the environment or to protect the land and the water and things like that. All right, ZJ, that's it for this installment. That's it for today. Next time, I will tell you some more about Native American Indian culture in ways that it's different from what we're used to. And as usual, if you have anything else that you'd like to learn about history, or you have any questions about the stuff that I've talked about so far, then just let me know, and I will answer them. And actually, you can text me now and ask me questions. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.